everybody, and welcome back to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. Today, Monday, September 15th, recording a very special preview episode for a very special match. Yep, first time of the Bayern Chelsea, Always Bayern Chelsea show that Bayern and Chelsea are playing each other in the Champions League. So we're going to preview it right here for you. All the stats, all the predictions, previews, everything you could need right here in this episode. We're in the same space, so it's going to be electric, of course. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel because we're doing a live stream of the match on Wednesday. Tune in for that and leave a like, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Welcome to the show.
The biggest match in the history of the ABC podcast. A super rich, long history for the podcast, of course. We know it's just been so long that we've been fans and together on this podcast. So really insane. But all jokes aside, it is going to be nuts. And, I only get a select amount of PTO, and I'm taking a half day just for this match. So if that doesn't tell you how big it is, and we live in America, so, PTO, nobody takes it. It's huge.
Yeah, it certainly is huge. Really looking forward to it. And we're trying to do a lot with our production value on this show. So, yeah, again, it would mean a lot if you tune in to that live stream on Wednesday. 2 p.m. Central Time is when the match takes place, and it is the first match of the Champions League season this year, so it's extra exciting. Chelsea's back in the Champions League for the first time in a while, it's just awesome. Again, we saw the draw come out not that long ago, and here we are already previewing the big match, so it's just going to be awesome. The new league format means that every match really does matter, and you're going to try to pick up as many points as possible. So, yeah, Bayern versus Chelsea at the Allianz Arena. It's almost here.
It is, and it's insane. I mean, I didn't realize that with this league phase right now, and I think this is maybe only this week just because there's no Europa League or Conference League, but there's matchups Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Usually it's just Tuesday, Wednesday. So, again, I think it's only because it's this first week, but it's a lot of insane matchups. I mean, you got Arsenal playing tomorrow, I know. I think PSG plays tomorrow. Of course, the biggest game, I really think, of this first week is Chelsea and Bayern, but a lot of good matchups. So, if you just want to watch a ton of good football, definitely make sure to tune in and watch all these matches because they're going to be a lot of fun.
Agreed. So why don't we start? Let's just mention the last couple matchups here between these two teams. I have them written down. You have the most recent matchup being the 2020 UCL round of 16 over 2 legs where Bayern did thump Chelsea 7-1 in aggregate. That Bayern team obviously was just rolling, and really crushing everybody in their path. So a huge win for Bayern in that one. 2017, you have the International Champions Cup, Bayern winning 3-2. And then 2013, the UEFA Super Cup final, 2-2, but Bayern ended up winning that one on pens. And then the infamous 2012 UCL final in the Allianz Arena, the worst day in Bayern Munich history, many people would say, a 1-1 draw, which Chelsea ends up winning on pens. So yeah, that was the most recent matchups between these two teams, dating back to that 2012 UCL final. Bayern has had the upper hand in these last couple matchups, but that UCL final is so big that I think Chelsea holds a big part of Bayern Munich's history, basically, at least recent history.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, a couple notes on that, just looking at it. Let's be honest, those 3 most recent don't matter at all. You got 2020, COVID year, nobody cares. You got 2013, 2017 International Champions. I don't even know what that is. Who cares? 2013 Super Cup. Again, these are cups that at the time you might celebrate, but nobody cares looking back. So 2012, I mean, to win a UCL final in somebody's backyard when they put up 50 shots against you, by all means dominate you, and then you still sneak away with a huge win, again, in somebody's backyard. I mean, that's insane.
I would almost argue that is, I don't want to say classic Chelsea, but a tournament team. I feel like Chelsea's a tournament team.
That's what they're known for.
And that type of thing. yeah, winning a matchup like that where you're getting dominated, but you still come out with the win. I mean, I think that was 2 late goals, and that one I know Muller scored in, I think, the 83rd or something, and then that Chelsea goal I think was all in like the 85th or 87th, and yeah, I mean,
Yep.
yeah, crazy times, but Bayern, I guess, got their revenge afterwards for that one. Obviously, winning the 2013 Champions League was huge, but yeah, like still to this day, you hear these Bayern players, Bayern legends talk about the toughest day of their lives as a professional athlete, and they all say it was that match.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's hilarious talking about it because you got Muller who just left Bayern. You know, you had Neuer in that match as well. Just funny to think that that's 13 years ago, and you had these guys that
yeah
are so old now still playing.
Yeah, I mean, that's like really a huge difference between these two teams, right? Like Bayern has a lot of these legacy experienced guys, and obviously not as much now, of course, Muller leaving, that's years and years of experience there, but still have Neuer. And then even, you know, the average, I don't know what the average age is between the two teams, but Bayern is a team of unks, essentially, with a few young guys, and Chelsea is a team of young guys with no unks.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea are the youngest team in Europe, pretty much. You know, it's them, Strasbourg, PSG, I know, are up there in terms of the youngest. So really 2 completely different strategies in the way that they get players, in the way that they kind of develop players, you know, their business models. 2 just couldn't be more different. So that certainly does make an intriguing clash when you look at these teams.
Yeah, it really does. And I think a little bit later we'll get to tactics and things like that. But first, I just wanted to mention the recent form of both teams. Bayern, of course, is first in the Bundesliga. They won that Super Cup match against Stuttgart 2-1. They barely escaped a collapse in the DFB Pokal against Wiesbaden. And then they've won all their Bundesliga matches. Leipzig obviously crushed them. Augsburg looked great for a half and then almost blew it. And Hamburg crushed them. So Bayern right now is in pretty good form. I would say great form in terms of their record. Obviously, they've won all their games, but I think that Chelsea is going to be a big test for Bayern, and I'll feel like I have a lot more knowledge or a lot more confidence in giving a take about their current form after this Chelsea match.
Yeah, and I would argue Bayern, as you said, is in tremendous form. Chelsea, it's tough to really say because they are Club World Cup champions of the world, beat PSG in dominating fashion, but the start to the league, you could argue, has been, you know, a little underwhelming. They're unbeaten with 2 wins and 2 draws, but against 4 lesser opponents, in my view. So you got guys that are kind of starting to try to meld together as a new squad. So it's tough to say if Chelsea have any momentum either way. If anything, in terms of how the fans are viewing it, I would say they have a little bit of negative momentum. But that being said, we've talked about how Chelsea thrive as underdogs, and that's what they're known for. So I'd also say that's a little bit of a good thing heading into a match against a hugely talented squad in Bayern.
Yeah, and I do think that when Chelsea's starters are playing, they are looking good. I think, like, you know, you saw it against Brentford, where Chelsea started off the match pretty poor and then made a couple key substitutions and looked a lot better. Also, you know, both teams dealing with some injuries, but Chelsea will be getting Palmer back, I guess, in full form. He only played a half or maybe a little less than a half against Brentford. And Esteval coming back too. Going to be tough to say. I would say right now Bayern is in better form.
Yeah, let's talk about form injury-wise, right? Because both teams are missing key guys. You know, Chelsea, in terms of the long term, are missing Levi Colwill. We know he's their most important defensive piece. They're missing Lavia, Benoit Badiashile, not starters, but key guys. You know, I think when fit, Lavia really, really helps their midfield, whether playing 30 minutes or 90. And Benoit would have been just a good replacement for Colwill. Then we have, trying to think who else. Esteval, yeah, you said he was ill. He will be coming back. Who knows how much he'll play? I doubt he starts. But then you got Pedro and Palmer, who both are likely to play but are not 100%. I mean, that's definitely true. Pedro said he did not want to play against Brentford. Maresca did play him, which was very interesting. So we'll see if he does play. I'm expecting him to, but there's a chance that he potentially doesn't. So those are some things to watch. And
Delop too.
Delop, of course. I'm missing probably the second biggest one behind Levi Colwill, is Delop, who would have been a really big threat up top as a striker, against Upamecano and Ta. And now it's just kind of left to Pedro. So those are the keys. In my opinion, the biggest miss is Levi Colwill. I've talked about it quite a bit, but what he provides for you defensively, and then in your setup in terms of playmaking and being able to play balls from the back as a left-sided center back is super, super key. A lot of times becomes their center back, when they kind of morph into a back three in possession. So we'll see how that changes things for Enzo Maresca and in terms of his tactics.
Yeah, and then on the Bayern side, you do have Jamal Musiala, Alphonso Davies, Hiroki Ito, and Rafael Guerreiro injured. Obviously those are huge injuries for Bayern. Bayern is building their future around Musiala. He's their star boy, their gem, their cornerstone. And Alphonso Davies is, another one of Bayern's top players. Probably with Musiala and Davies, that's 2 out of their 5 top players. And then Ito would be the second string left back, also injured. So you got an out of position Stanisic playing there. And then Rafael Guerreiro, a depth guy to have. I don't think he would have been a factor in this match, to be honest with you, a Champions League match like this. But obviously a guy to have there for depth. So, yeah, both teams are dealing with some injuries. And it's something that I don't want to talk about a lot because it kind of ruins a little bit of the fun of the match for me if that's all that I'm thinking about. So
Totally.
I think both teams are still going to be strong. And they're going to, be able to, have a heavyweight fight still, even despite having a few big injuries each.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it, but I will say that there's one injury I did forget to bring up, and if Chelsea do lose, it will be because of this. They're missing Dario Isugo.
I knew you were gonna say that, and can't tell you anything about the man.
Yeah, he has not played yet, I don't believe, on the season. Unfortunate, really, because he's supposed to be a depth piece, really getting some time in place of Moises Caicedo, who we all know desperately needs rest at some point. And Isugo just picked up just a random thigh injury, needed surgery when he was on international break for the Portugal U21. So, I kid, obviously, when I say that, but it is very unfortunate for him.
Yeah, definitely. So now let's move on to some keys of the match, some tactical talk. I wrote down my keys to the match for both Bayern and Chelsea. Starting with Chelsea, I think the number one thing is going to be exposing the back line, which actually goes for both teams as a little spoiler, but we'll get to Bayern. I think Chelsea has a great diverse attack with a lot of different profiles, and I think that they can expose Bayern's back line if they're working together well. We saw Bayern's back line get absolutely exposed by a fourth-tier German side as well as Augsburg. So in my mind, there's a little bit of worry there and concern when you're facing an attack like Chelsea's. I think Chelsea can play some long balls and counter over that line. We see Robert Sanchez honestly try to start quick counters sometimes, and I think that could be a key, with a long ball over that line. And then the other thing that I would target if I was Chelsea, and, by no means am I thinking less of Stanisic, but he is, again, their third choice left back, playing out of position. He is a right back playing left back. And, while I think he's good, there are times where he does get too high up in the pitch and can get exposed. And I think really a guy like Estevao, I don't know if he's going to start, but I think a guy like Estevao could really expose Stanisic. And with Upa and Ta maybe not getting back in time, that could lead to a goal. So those are my keys overall for Chelsea.
And those would be my keys as well for Chelsea, because when you're coming into a game like this, you think about the last big opponent that you played. That's PSG, as we know, in that Club World Cup final. Chelsea dominate because of the strategy that you just laid out. And I've seen a lot of talk online about this rolling with that same lineup, and I really, really think I would. I would play Gusto and Reece James, kind of a back three, back five. So you essentially would have Reece James in midfield, Gusto pushing up, kind of almost like as a wing back. And then you play Caicedo and Enzo in midfield as well. Palmer right wing, Neto left wing, João Pedro up top. I think that makes your team really dynamic in midfield. Gusto in that wing back-ish role, pushing up. And then Palmer kind of tucking in because I don't think he's going to be super fit. But then Gusto's able to run that sideline kind of as a right winger. So Palmer tucks slightly in, just as we saw against PSG. And that way you can kind of expose a little bit of Bayern on that side, because that would be the Stanisic side.
Yep.
So that would be a good plan, playing some long balls, trying to counter. I do want Neto playing. Obviously, he's the fastest player on the team. You're going to try to do that then with him on the other side. So to me, that makes sense. You have Neto and Gusto on those sides, kind of rolling with that. And in effect, they're almost like wing backs. Whether you look at Neto as a left wing back, it doesn't really matter. And then you got your three center backs, Cucurella. Put two center backs in there, Tosin, Chalobah, Fofana, Achampong, whoever you want. And I think that would make things interesting, really.
Yeah, that's a really good call. I didn't even think about that lineup that they did against PSG, but I think that is the way to go against Bayern for sure. So you just convinced me. But, yeah, I mean, I do think, I worry about that left-hand side for Bayern, especially if you have, Palmer, Gusto, obviously, and James kind of in the midfield, but on that side, combining to overrun Stanisic, and Diaz as well. I just don't know enough yet about Diaz's ability to, track back and help with the defending. So far, he's been good. I would say fine to good, but I haven't seen him play against an attacking team like Chelsea yet. So I think that's the way to go if you're Chelsea. Honestly, Bayern does not have a lot of weaknesses, but that certainly is one of them.
Yeah, and kind of adding to that, so with that lineup for Chelsea, you're strengthening your defense in that back three, morphed back five, however you want to call it, because you have Reece out there, you have Cucurella out there, but you also have Gusto. And on those two sidelines, Gusto and Neto are so good at running up and down, tracking back a ton. Neto is one of the team's best defenders when you calculate tracking back, doing all the little things on that side of it.
I agree.
Pedro, we've seen, makes a ton of effort there as well. So it will matter if he's 100% fit, but he's good at that, so you want him out there. And then Palmer's decent at that stuff too, really smart player. So really all those guys become extra defenders there. The only downside, I think, with that is you are a little light in attack, obviously putting Gusto and James both out there. So, I see one of your keys you'll talk about here for Bayern, but that makes a key for me, again, for Chelsea, is you will have to be clinical when you get a couple chances. You will potentially get a few chances. We saw Amberg get that semi-early chance against Bayern. I mentioned how I think a Palmer does put that away. And so you would have to take advantage of anything that you get, whether it's over the top or a run through the high line. You'd have to be clinical and put those chances away if you're Chelsea.
Agreed. So let's talk about some keys for Bayern now, because, I mentioned it before. I think exposing the back line is really a key for both of these teams. Both of their attacks are very strong, and I think both of their defenses have some holes. So I think for Bayern, the key, obviously, it's going to be clinical finishing. Bayern is a team that's going to get a lot of shots. They always do, no matter who they play. But if they can't finish, that's going to be a problem. And the other thing, too, is just controlling, maybe not possession. I wrote down possession, but controlling the flow of the game is more so what I mean. Controlling the tempo, controlling the pace. And a lot of times that does stem from controlling possession, but just don't, let Chelsea dictate the game. Don't let them play it on their own terms. Use the kind of crowd, the home pitch, home stadium advantage to your benefit, and really just overwhelm Chelsea with the attack. Bayern's attack is so talented. Kane, Olise, Diaz, Gnabry. is an extremely talented attack, and they can be trouble for anybody. When they're all on, when they're all clinical, they can put up a bunch of goals on anybody, and they just have to, I think, overwhelm Chelsea with that attack and don't even let them blink.
Yeah, I would agree. Bayern's attack is lethal. They are one of the best attacks in the world by far. Chelsea don't see a lot of supremely talented attacks where everybody is so good. There's a lot of great teams in the Premier League, but it's rare that there's a front four as supreme as Bayern. So, I think the interesting thing is that Chelsea tend to be bad on the counter when teams kind of do that. That's not necessarily Bayern's style, but I do think the way Bayern can break teams down, the way we saw against an Hamburg, this weekend, they can find the holes in anybody. And we've talked about Chelsea's backline. Their center backs are not the strongest right now. So Bayern will definitely be targeting them.
Yeah, agreed. And, you kind of mentioned the lineup for Chelsea. I think that what you said is right, and I do think that actually is going to be Chelsea's best bet. For Bayern, I'm thinking that Kompany is going to go with the lineup that he's always gone with, basically with the exception of Goretzka in the midfield instead of Pavlovic for this one. I think he's going to go Neuer, Leimer, Upata, Stanisic, Kimmich, Goretzka, Olise, Gnabry, Diaz, Kane. And you could very well see Pavlovic in that midfield. Pavlovic and Goretzka are both different profiles, different strengths. Pavlovic has incredible vision, incredible passing, but I think Goretzka's a little bit more of a physical kind of box-to-box threat, better at like box-crashing runs as well offensively. So me personally, I would like to see Kimmich. He did this against Leipzig, I want to say. It was one of the matches earlier this year, but really dropped back, forming that back three in possession while Goretzka was kind of freer to join that attack. And that's, I think, what I want to see happening. Pavlovic can be physical, but I just think, especially going against a guy like Caicedo in the midfield, I don't know. I think he could really, really body Pavlovic, or I don't want to say bully him, but I think body him. And I think Kompany is going to go with Goretzka. I think he rested Goretzka this weekend and started Pavlovic, so he would be playing Goretzka in this one.
Yeah, that midfield is one to watch for sure. The decision there for Kompany between those two fellas. That midfield battle is going to be very, very interesting. If Chelsea do go with that PSG lineup, where you have James, Caicedo in the midfield there, and then Enzo pushing up more as an attacking midfielder, that makes a very interesting battle between, whether it's Kimmich and Goretzka or Kimmich and Pavlovic. How Caicedo will kind of choose who he's really going to mark as well, I think will be interesting, and how much he can do to stop these guys on Bayern. I think maybe the one plus for Chelsea, and maybe I can't even say this because of how Serge looks, but I don't view Bayern as the fastest team on the planet.
Definitely not, especially without Davies, definitely not.
Right, so that I think is maybe one little positive. I think just at times Chelsea looks so slow, in defense, their center backs. So, I don't know, we'll see how that plays out. And I do expect Bayern to possess more of the ball anyway, so will that matter? Maybe not.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But let's kind of round things off with a prediction here. My official prediction is going to be 2-1 Bayern winning. Now, again, don't get me wrong. We talked so much about the lack of or I should say the weakness of both of these teams being their defense. So I could certainly see both of these teams popping in more goals than that. But I'm going 2-1. I think Bayern is going to have that crowd at the Allianz, the familiarity of playing in Germany. The crowd is going to be insane. There's going to be pyro. There's going to be, everything that is a UCL crowd in Germany. I think it really does matter. I think Bayern's attack is just so talented. I do think that, last year we saw Bayern, their domestic success didn't really translate to Europe. We saw some stinkers early in the UCL. We saw that 0-1 loss against Villa. And Villa, a team who is back in the Champions League for the first time in a while too. So that can really go one of two ways. I think for Chelsea, it could be they're so amped up that they're just ready to play great, or they're so amped up that they're dealing with nerves and whatnot. So, that type of thing is hard to really call at this point. But I do just feel like Bayern's overall experience is going to be what pushes the needle over the edge here. I think it'll be a great match. I'm calling Kane to score. And, of course, I'm calling Gnabry to score because Gnabry cooks in London against London teams. That's his shtick. So, Purple Patch Gnabry is going to cook in this one. And then we'll say Olise will get at least an assist there. And for Chelsea, I'm going to go with an Esteval goal. I am. I think he's going to do some magic over there in his UCL debut.
So that would probably be a late goal. Let's call it 85th minute.
Sure.
Bayern are trying to choke the game away. Esteval sneaks one in. I like that call. I do think Bayern are going to win this game. I have 3-1 as my prediction. A lot of the reasons that you laid out, with it being in Munich, first UCL match. Chelsea are a young team. Bayern are experienced. The crowd will be insane. I do think this game could get away from Chelsea, and Bayern could end up dominating even more. I do think there's an outside shot of that. But let me say this. If you are Chelsea and you want to win this match, here's how I think you would do that. You got to come into the game and view it as you're playing like you did against PSG. You have to be a Cole Palmer mentality where you just really don't give a shit. You block all the outside noise out. You forget about the crowd. You play like young, fighting, hungry underdogs, and you score right away. You got to score within probably the first 10 to 15 minutes. Throw Bayern on the back of their heels and just go right at them. Attack. If that's what you can do, then I think you have a chance to win this match. If you go up 1-0, you probably even have to go up 2-0 because I think Bayern's attack will be so strong. We know Enzo likes to then take a step back and be defensive. So you got to just jump right out of the gate and put pressure on. That will be, I think, the only way that Chelsea have a chance here. If that doesn't happen, I just see Bayern's attack being ultimately too strong.
Yeah, and to be fair, that is what we've seen so far from Vincent Kompany is I think he has a great idea of what he wants his team to do. I think he has the trust of the players, does a great job of implementing it. I think he has the right idea overall for his broader view on tactics, all that stuff. But we have seen him in European matches last year kind of scuffle when things get out of hand in the game. So like you said, if Chelsea scores early, there are times where he panics. It seems like he doesn't quite always have the right idea of what to do in game once his plan A fails. So there is a chance, that Chelsea can come in and win this one. And like I said, I mean, Bayern lost 3-0 to Feyenoord last year, and they got exposed by a 4th division Bundesliga side this year. So there's no guarantees, but I do just think Bayern right now is overall the better team. Even though Chelsea looked incredible against PSG, I do think right now Bayern just has a little bit of that edge.
Yeah, and maybe that slight edge is the spy, Nico Jackson, giving away all Chelsea's tactics. Who knows?
Man, what a wild report. Or not report, I guess that was just Ebril or somebody saying that. Yeah, crazy stuff. Cool, well, I think we can go ahead and wrap it up there. Be sure to tune into that live stream because, Jim and I have been best friends since kindergarten, age 5. So I don't foresee this match tearing that apart. But if you want to see it happen live,
it might happen.
Tune in. And subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff.
And stay tuned because, I just thought of this now, but there probably should be some sort of wager between us. So we'll put our minds to that and maybe release a short before the match detailing the rules and regulations for that.
Yeah, it's going to be a riot. It's going to be awesome. So, yeah, be sure to tune in. Be sure to subscribe. Thanks for checking out the preview. We'll do a reaction, of course, afterwards. And just stick around because it's going to be great.
Up the Chelsea.
Mia Sam Mia.